if you're the one who always seems to have it all together, if people describe you as strong, capable, dependable, but privately you're exhausted, I want you to know something. You're not broken. You may just be exhausted from being the strong one for way too long. And maybe you've been so busy holding it all together and everyone together that you haven't had time or the space to ask yourself one super important question. What do I need? Now, what does my family need? Now, what do the kids need? Now, what does my supervisor need? Not what my friends need. Not what does my partner or spouse need. Not what does everyone expect from me. But what do I need? That very question is what we're going to be exploring here. So, welcome to the Return to Self podcast. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm saying that. Honestly, it's been on my mind to do this for some time, but we'll get into that in a minute. I'm Julie Jameson, and this is a space for the woman who is tired of surviving, tired of carrying it all, and ready to begin coming home to herself. So take a breath, put your armor down, take the load off, and let's talk. I'm so glad that you're here. And like I said before, I've been really thinking for some time to create a space like this, a space where we can have the conversations that don't always fit into a 30-second Instagram reel or a caption, or feel like I'm talking to myself when I send out an email to my list, because there's so much more underneath everything that we talk about online. And online has become so superficial, so surface level, and I'm a Scorpio rising, so I love to go deep. I love to like excavate and get in there and do all the things. So this is like perfection for me. So if you're similar, we're gonna have a time. Like I said, there's so much underneath in what we talk about online. We talk about stress, we talk about burnout, we talk about nervous system healing, we talk about trauma and inner child healing. But underneath all of that, I think there's often a woman who has spent years, if not decades like me, it's been decades, yes, putting herself last. A woman who learned how to be strong, how to be responsible, how to take care of everyone else, how to keep going, how to keep pushing through. And somewhere along the way, she just lost touch with herself. Maybe she doesn't even know exactly when it happened. She just knows that she's tired, she's disconnected, she's overwhelmed, and maybe her body has been asking her to slow down. Maybe she's realizing that the way she's been living just isn't sustainable for her anymore. And that's the woman I'm here for. Because I believe that there comes a moment where we have to stop asking ourselves, how can I keep doing more? And instead start asking, how can I come back to myself? And I've been thinking about this for a while. Like, when did this all start? When did I take on this personality of being the strong one, of the responsible one, the capable one, the one everyone counts on, the one that's never gonna let anybody down? Like, when did this start? And I was thinking, like, my earliest recollection of this, and I still remember like it was yesterday, I was maybe like 9 or 10. I don't remember, but I remember being on the phone translating for my mom, who didn't speak any English, who is from Guatemala and came to this country with no family, no nothing, by herself, and literally had to raise us 3 girls on her own. And I remember that I used to translate for her with our caseworker, because we were on welfare and food stamps. And I remember being so nervous, like, and I had to do this a lot. And I remember being so nervous because she would have me on the phone with the caseworker, and the caseworker was such a bitch. She had an attitude all the time, and just her voice would make me so anxious. And then it didn't help that my mom was in my ear, like, make sure you tell her this, make sure you tell her that, in Spanish. And then I'm here trying to translate, trying to tell this lady like what my mom needs her to know. And it was just like this gripping feeling. And I remember for the first time, this is when I started to feel all this tension in my shoulders of the stress that making those calls would give me, because I remember when I would hang up, my mom would be like, "But you sure you told her this? You sure you told her that?" Because they were always cutting my mom's case off, and she always had to call and find out what was going on. And the caseworker was like, "No, your case is fine." And it was just this never-ending cycle that I knew was coming eventually at the first of the month. And there's little me trying to translate and trying to do the best that I could. And I remember in that moment that what would make my mom less upset and less stressed was when I did exactly what she would ask me to do, and she would get the results that she needed. And that registered in my mind like, okay, you have to be perfect. You can't ruffle feathers. You have to make your mother's life easier. You have to take on responsibility and take the load off of her. And so early on, I learned how to read the room. I learned how to read people's facial expressions, anticipating their needs before they even knew what they needed. I learned how to solve problems that were way too big for me to solve, but somehow I learned how to solve them. I learned how to anticipate the worst case scenario and plan for it in case it happened so that my mom wouldn't be stressed out, because she was working three jobs at a time trying to make ends meet. And the last thing that I wanted to hear was her screaming and cursing. That would make me so anxious. And so I learned how to take control of situations so that I could create some sort of a calmness around me. And I knew that if she wasn't stressed out and if she wasn't dealing with too much, then our house would feel calm. And so I took on this responsibility early on, and it just kept evolving as I got older. And it just basically became who I am. And so as I got older, it became hard for me to ask for help. It became hard for me to depend on anybody, because whenever I did, I would get disappointed, or they wouldn't do it exactly how I wanted them to do it. So I became a control freak. I became a perfectionist. I became an overachiever. I always got good grades. I was always in the honor roll. I remember my sisters used to always tease me and say, "Oh, she's the nerd, she's the nerd." And I was always in like the honor classes because I was just always a smart kid. And this translated to my job. Like, I was the one who got shit done. I was the one you would go to when you needed to get something done. I was the one who would always figure things out. I was the one who just always found a way. I was the one who came in early and stayed late. I was the one who took the burdens off of my husband, who cooked, who took care of the kids, who bathed the kids, who dropped the kids off, picked the kids up, and got their lunch and did their hair, and was there for them emotionally and physically and all the things. Went to the parent teacher conferences and did all of it to try to take the burden off of him. The same thing happened in my friendships, where I was just overgave all the time, and it was never really like a balanced relationship. And I became a people pleaser. I became somebody who just always wanted to control her environment. And so being the strong one and the capable one just became part of my identity. And then it also didn't help the fact that I became pregnant as a teenager. I had my daughter at 17 years old, and so I had to grow up so fast, like super fast. And I lost my childhood, and it almost feels like I never really had a childhood, because from when I was young, I was always doing adult things and adult tasks because I was capable of doing these things. And then I became a mom super early in life. And so I lost my childhood, and I was forced to adult very quickly. And at about 20 years old, I moved out with my daughter and my boyfriend at the time. And I never looked back. I've always lived on my own ever since. And I repeated that same pattern with my boyfriend. Like, I'll take care of everything. You don't have to worry about nothing. Um, it just became where everything fell on me. And I started to think of like why that was. And I made the connection of like, well, of course, Julie, because every woman that you saw growing up was always struggling, was always stressed, was always tired, exhausted. She was always alone. I cannot recall of a situation where there was a marriage modeled in front of me. It wasn't with my mom, it wasn't with my mom's friends. I don't even know if I ever knew anybody who was married when I was younger. And so I didn't understand what partnership meant. I learned early on that the woman takes on everything. The woman is supposed to be tired. That's just part of life. As I get older, I'm supposed to just be overwhelmed because that's what I saw growing up. And so when I became older and it was my turn to now have a family and live life, I figured this is just the way women are. This was just my fate and my destiny, right? There's no other way. And maybe you can relate to this. Maybe you've been the strong one your entire life, the one who figures things out, the one who always has it together, the one who never wants to burden anyone, the one who always says I'm fine when she knows damn well she's not fine. And here's the thing about being the strong one, right? Sometimes strength starts as something that is there to protect us, right? And maybe there was a time in your life when you really had to be the strong one. Maybe you had to grow up quickly like I did. And maybe you learned that being independent was safer than having to depend on somebody. Maybe you learned that your needs had to come second. And so you became really, really good at not having to need anything from anyone. But eventually, what protected you is what can get you stuck and keep you there. Because when you're always the strong one, you forget how to receive. It becomes so uncomfortable to receive. I remember, at least for me, receiving a compliment, receiving help, receiving acknowledgement for something good that I did. Just receiving became so hard for me. You can forget how to ask for help. You can forget to rest without feeling guilty. You can forget even how to recognize what you need. And eventually you can become so disconnected with yourself that you don't even recognize that you've been abandoning yourself until your body or your life forces you to pay attention, which is what happened to me. It took for my body to start breaking down on me, for me to finally pay attention that I was doing too much, that I was burnt out, that I was overwhelmed, and that I was hanging on by a thread. It took for my health to go downhill. For me to realize that. It took for me to have the migraines, the dizzy spells, the vertigo, the shooting pain, the numbness, the tingling. The chronic fatigue that wouldn't go away even if I slept the entire weekend. Monday morning, I got up and was exhausted, like I didn't even take a nap. The fogginess, the forgetfulness, the neck pain, the shoulder pain, the hand pain. I can go on and on and on with the symptoms. We'll get into that conversation on another episode. But it literally took for my body to break down for me to finally pay attention and say, hold on a second, Julie. This is not the way life is supposed to be. You got to turn this around. You have to turn this around. But before that realization, I thought that sometimes we just think that we're not doing enough. And if we push a little harder, right? If we become more productive, if we get another planner, like if you know me, you know how many planners I used to run through. Like, oh, it's the planner. I need to change my planner. Like, really, girl? Really? We try another routine. We even try another wellness practice. And we're like, maybe this will do the trick. And the best one is we'll tell ourselves that we'll rest when everything is done. But nothing is ever completed. Nothing is ever done, because once you cross something off that to-do list, you add something else on, because you don't know what to do with yourself when there's nothing to do. And so you create things for you to do. And then you wonder why you're exhausted, why you're cranky, why you are just not yourself anymore. But what if the problem isn't that you're not doing enough? What if you've been doing too much for far too long? What if your body isn't failing you? What if it's just trying to communicate to you? What if it's finally just trying to get your attention? And what if your exhaustion isn't a sign that you need to get stronger? What if it's an invitation to finally stop carrying everything that was never meant for you to carry? And I think that that's where the return begins. When I talk about returning to yourself, because I've been talking about this for a while, I don't mean that you have to become this completely new version of yourself. That's not what it means. I don't think that you have to fix everything that's wrong with you because, look, nobody's perfect. None of us are perfect. I'm not perfect. We all have our flaws. All of us. I don't think that you need to become more productive, stronger, or more disciplined. I just think that there's a part of you underneath all of the roles that you've had to play all of your life. That part of you that knows exactly what she needs. The part of you that knows when something just isn't right. That part of you that wants to rest. That part of you that wants to play. That part of you that wants to experience joy again. To feel safe, to feel supported. And maybe the work isn't about becoming someone new. Maybe the work is about gently, slowly, and patiently coming back to the woman that you were before you learned that everybody else's needs mattered more than yours. And that's what I mean when I say return to yourself. And that's the journey that we're going to take together here. So I want to leave you with a question, and you don't have to answer it right away. You can take it with you. You can journal about it. Y'all know journaling is my favorite thing. Or you can let it sit with you for a few days. And here it is. Where in my life am I still being the strong one when what I actually need is support? And maybe there's another more important question underneath that one. What would change if I allowed myself to need? Not because you're weak, not because you can't handle things, because we all know you can, and we all know that you're not, but because you don't have to handle everything alone. You were never meant to. Thank you for spending time with me. I hope this conversation reminded you that you don't have to earn rest. You don't have to earn support. You don't have to prove to yourself that you're strong enough. You don't have to wait until you're completely depleted to start taking care of yourself. Please don't do what I did. Please don't do what I did. It's not worth it. Trust me, it is not worth it. If something in this conversation resonated with you, I hope you'll stay. Subscribe to the podcast. Come back for the next episode. And if you know another woman who's always had to be the strong one, go ahead and send this episode to her. Because sometimes the woman who has it all together, who's always put together, and who always seems like she's on top of the world, is the one who needs someone to tell her that she doesn't have to carry it alone. This is your invitation to begin to return to yourself. And I'll see you next time.